So we're going live now?
At this point, yeah. Oh, there he is. Nice timing, Andrew.
Oh, I thought I saw where Andrew wasn't going to be here. I was all prepared for him not to. Not.
Yeah.
Well,
After you heard the
he
beard
hear me
comments.
yet?
easily done.
Yeah, I saw him. Wasn't on the list, and he was on the list. Is Mira Lewis? Is that the other guy?
Yes, that's Thornton. He will be here very shortly.
Okay. Oh, happy 20th, Brian.
For Narnia Web, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and there's Thornton.
There's Thornton.
Whoa.
And Andrew, it says you've got Riverside open in a couple of tabs. You might want to just check.
I know. I closed it, and it takes a while to, stop whining.
Wonderful.
Sounds like me.
Now, I promise.
Well, yeah. When I was watching the earlier show, I was on the other computer where I've got. We won't say how many tabs, but there was like an echo in it, and I thought maybe I rendered it or had another one in the background, and I could never figure it out. But I listened to a couple parts of the playback, and it was fine. I don't know if it was just whatever weird thing.
It's possible that you could have had, say, Facebook open and YouTube open, and
I did first open Facebook, but then I thought I closed it. But then, like I say, I've got too many tabs, and I just went with it. It was faint in the background, so but the recording looked good.
Excellent. Okay, well, we are live on YouTube. We are live on Facebook. Oh,
so let's ask everybody to like and subscribe right up front.
David, thank you so much for managing all this, David. You look like you're trying to juggle a lot right now. You're like Dr. Octopus trying to keep up with it all, so thank you. And for organizing this whole thing, my goodness.
Yeah, it's good.
Putting your toddler to bed.
Did Alexander
and putting a toddler to sleep at the same time.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Did
let me
take a power nap, you guys, earlier?
No, this is my power nap.
That's your favorite.
Yeah, liquid nap right there.
I still am getting a little bit of very nice pull there, Glumpuddle. I still am getting a little bit of a feedback or echo.
I think somebody's headphones is a little loud. That's why.
Aha.
I've got mine as low as I can get them.
Okay, I'm just gonna restart the Facebook feed because for some reason it's only got me.
Okay, yeah, I was trying to. I've got another computer next to me here. Here we go. Yeah, so I can see the chat because we can't see the chat from here.
How many podcasters does it take to?
Yeah, David, I was getting you on the Facebook stream too.
Yeah, let's give this one
my audio there, so otherwise I'll definitely have
put an echo there.
Tell you what, it's still just got me.
I'm just going to go ahead and put in my vote right now for William O'Flaherty as the best voice in podcasting.
No, really? Thank you very much.
Read a little phone.
Oh, it's an honor to receive such an award. I can do my weird voices.
All right, let's try doing this again. I gotta say, for given the size of
Andrew,
Facebook.
I see you enjoyed my fake misquotes. Hardships often come to those who falsely attribute quotes to Lewis. Or
yes, I saw that. Yeah.
I threw in a few others
I
there.
tagged you today because some had the Oxford Fantasy Society or something.
Yeah, I saw that.
We're wrong.
Yeah. Oops.
Yeah.
But we're recording now, right? So we won't talk about that.
Yeah. Sorry.
It was good effort.
Well,
it was good effort.
If a wise man strikes or approves me, it is kindness, says the psalm. So
there are far, far better quotes ahead.
Than any we leave behind.
I just had to delete a comment that attributed that to Lewis just today.
Oh my gosh.
Well, it's almost.
Hopefully there were far better comments.
Yeah.
Yes.
If
you use a wrong quote, you are not a soul. You just have a soul.
Yes. Or let's see. I was playing around. Yeah. You are never too old to act whether or not a
Quote shared on social media
is by C.S. Lewis or not.
If we keep this up, not C.S. Lewis will be more quoted than actual C.S. Lewis.
Well,
did you see on the memes that David
C.S.
created?
Lewis.
All the pictures. He had a whole section of not quotes down there at the bottom. It's
Love
a
it.
work of genius.
I didn't look through all of it. I looked at it early on a few weeks ago.
But not it's in detail. Really worth checking out. By the way,
take a negative and turn it into a positive.
Oh yeah.
And your picture is fuzzy, Andrew. Oh, well, it's fuzzy on. Well, it's fuzzy here, but it's not fuzzy online when I look at it online. So don't do anything. Yeah. After he does something. Yeah.
There it is.
But
there you go.
No,
yeah,
you weren't too. Yeah.
Focus
yeah.
now.
Yeah. Okay. We can see you too. We can see you too well.
This is a first edition of Till We Have Faces.
Ooh,
from Cecil Harwood's house.
Ooh. This is the first edition of Screw Tape Letters, Marvel Edition.
Oh, I've got that.
Is that reverse image? I meant to double check.
No, you're fine. Let's not get into this.
Okay, it is.
William. It'll get depressing.
I'm sure you're gonna have much more. Besides, I'm not at my bookshelf, but I don't have too many things.
I'm about to throw up on for Christmas on eBay.
Don't throw up. Don't throw up. No. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm going to toss up a complete set of the British Chronicles, first editions.
Ooh.
So
here's a first edition quotable Lewis, and then they reprinted it. I don't know if Jerry knows, or I never asked him why they reprinted it. And there was some correction supposedly.
Okay.
That's where rumors get started. I mean, it did get reprinted, but the allegory of love.
Everyone's just getting an insight into most of the first 15 minutes of every single time we get together to record.
My goodness.
Oh, yeah. If not more, quite right.
I only grabbed a couple here. I should have grabbed more.
Well, on that note, should we jump in?
Yes.
Let's jump in, Matt. You kick things off.
I will. So welcome anyone watching this live and anyone watching this after the fact, which will probably be much more, to our second live stream. So hopefully the first one actually went beautifully, smoothly, and was just so wonderful. But this time this is run 2. So anyone watching this one probably is going to get a slightly better one because we know what we're doing this time.
The sequels are always better.
The sequels.
Yes, the sequels are always better.
Yeah, the Voyage of the Non-Treader is certainly proof of that.
Yeah. So, Andrew.
So Andrew,
kind of kick this off and tell us a little bit about the origin of the event.
Yes, thank you so much for asking, and fellas, thank you for joining us, and thank you for those who are watching the live stream. It's a joy to be with you all. This idea just I think appeared kind of generically, organically in some of our conversations, and you got to be careful of mentioning a good idea to David Bates, because then we have something like this that happens. So I was kicking around the idea about how Tolkien has Tolkien Reading Day, which is March 25th, the day of the destruction of the ring, and also the day of the Annunciation to Mary. And then they have the Tolkien salute, the toast to the professor, on January 3rd. And I'm like, well, Lewis is a professor. Why don't we toast him? And then, of course, you've got Bilbo and Frodo's birthday party on September 22nd. It's like, hey, we don't even have a single day for Lewis. How about we start a C.S. Lewis Reading Day? And that's all you got to say to David Bates. And poof, after hours and hours and hours and hours of work, here we are. So that's kind of how that all jumped up. Does my audio still sound a little low?
You sound good to me.
Yours is okay. Matt's was a little low for me, but I don't know, Matt, if there's
I
anything.
was just reading the comments. So,
No.
we tossed around a few dates. Our slackers. We have Pints with Slack. Our Slack channel weighed in and decided on a date. We thought about the 22nd of November, his Saints Day and Sidecar Day, but we settled on today, on Lewis's 125th birthday. And I don't know. I think it's been a roaring success. It's been great to see Reading Day flood my social media today. So, cheers to everybody. And I'm drinking, by the way, Macallan 16 in a Pints with Jack.
Pints with glass.
Pints with glass, yeah.
And finishing off, Macallan 12. Finishing off a Guinness and another Pints with Jack glass. So,
Glen
what are
Puddle,
you
what are you
drinking,
having?
Glen Puddle?
Just some Blue Moon I picked up on the way home here. I went, oh no,
Solid
I can't
entry.
can't just have water, can I?
Right.
Oh yeah, thanks.
Thornton, do you have anything you're drinking?
I am drinking some Irish breakfast tea in honor, I guess, of Lewis's Irish ancestry, and something to just keep me up past my bedtime here on the East Coast.
Very nice.
Who's Irish breakfast? Which brand?
Twinings. That's my go-to.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, being dyslexic, I have O2H.
A secret that I don't like to.
David?
It's a secret that I actually prefer Irish breakfast to English breakfast. Just don't tell the king, because won't be let back in. I am drinking some of VAT 69, which we know that Lewis drank. I bought back several bottles the last time I was in England, and I was keeping this one for a special occasion. And I think this
is the special occasion.
Yeah.
Now, you were drinking that 2 hours ago, or something like that. So how much have you had? No, moving on.
You don't have to answer that.
We are fans here of drinking in moderation, so sipping and enjoying.
Sipping and enjoying.
And speaking of enjoying things, let me share something.
Please.
Ooh. Dun, 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 dun. So
That
that's what you read today?
Yeah, this is my light bedtime reading. No, these are the books which we are giving away. We gave away, I think, 8 of them in the last live stream, and I'm going to get the computer to generate me some more names now. So we'll do it one per guest. So,
do I qualify
Bobby,
for this?
It depends if you registered. I can't see your name in here.
I almost registered, and I thought, no, that would be quite cricket.
But the winners for this live stream are Bobby Roberts, Carlotta Abea, from the Slack, Catherine Corbin, Marcella Murphy, and simply Sarah. I will be sending you an email sometime within the next hour, and I'll send you the link to the Google Doc with all of the books that we're giving away, and you just I will send that out to you.
Carlotta's
first come,
very
first served,
deserving.
right?
She's in our
So respond quickly.
What did you say,
Carlotta's
Matt?
very deserving. She's in our Slack community, and she just posted her 2023 top podcasts, and Pints with Jack was #1 most listened.
Yay! Well, to Carlotta.
Oh.
Yes.
Well, actually, yes. Let's do a little toast. Matt, would you like to do this? Since you got the Macallan going.
I will. This is a toast to every Lewis lover out there, and especially our listeners and supporters. And may Lewis, every day that you encounter Lewis, may you encounter the Lord a little more. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers to Jack.
To Jack. To the
Putting you on
professor.
spot there, David.
By the way, if you're interested, it's these prayer chimes that I use to make the chime.
You're showing them how the sausage gets made at this point.
Behind the scenes.
Ooh.
Is my
We call
volume
them
a little better
bangers
now,
over here,
too?
David.
That was worth the price of admission right there.
That's not just
Getting
like a
that
down.
secret.
That's not just like a stock sound effect. That's an original. Wow.
Well, then, yeah, David has one though.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they're
yes.
crappy sometimes.
Well, as we get started, it tends to be a free for all, and we had a nice, tight, rigid, not Batesianly rigid, but a nice, tight schedule. But then we realized that we actually asked podcasters on, And I've yet to find one that is short-winded, starting with myself. But William, we want to hear a little bit from you and tell us about your online presence and some of the work that you have done.
Okay. Yeah. Well, let's see. Trying to keep it concise here. So everything I do is centralized around my website, essential.com. And then I have names for every little nick and cranny. Unfortunately, I didn't think it through as I went along. But the podcast I've called is All About Jack, celebrating the 12th year in October here. Just I guess still just last month. This is still November when it's going live. But anyway, and so then I did a Knowing and Understanding C.S. Lewis, because I had a different name because I was going to do a different project for maybe a book. But anyway.
EssentialCSLewis.com.
And that primarily started out as a way for me to get free books about C.S. Lewis. I figured I could, scrounge up enough money to buy books by Lewis, but then all the stuff about Lewis. So if I interview authors and get publishers to send me stuff, so all joking aside, that's a nice benefit there. But anyway, so that's how things started out. Then here and there, I've done some different things, some essay. And some different specialty things. And then I try now with so many people doing different things to try to catch some unique things. But then I realized that just like I would want to be on all sorts of different shows, that, it's fine to also have a guest that was on one other podcast, or it might start with me, then go to another one, or, vice versa. But anyway, all that to say, I am working now on final mix for an exclusive maybe. But then Andrew may get it at some time because he knows this person. But Kevin Belmonte, I spoke with.
Yes.
And so Phil Kagi did a project called Pilgrimage. That's the right title, right, Andrew? I meant to have it up in front of me so I wouldn't mess it up. But so there were 2 songs more related to Jack, and then to Chesterton, who, Lewis was influenced by. And so I chatted with him primarily about that, but we couldn't help but talk about Keith Green and some other aspects and such. So gonna be posting that before too long, and then other different things with YouTube, trying to dispel the different. That's
more so as
from being quotable C.S. Lewis, trying to help people to understand what is not by Lewis, and by doing some shorts that then people can more easily share and find. So that's kind of a whirlwind thing about me, I guess.
That's great. Well, and of course, I wouldn't be here if it weren't for Phil Kagi. He was the one who introduced me to Lewis all those years ago. And then when I brought him a first edition one time when visiting him in Nashville, as listeners know, he gave me a first edition of The Great Divorce, and he signed it to me, but that book had been signed by Lewis. And so it's right there in the next room. So, by the way, Matt Nash is toasting us in his Pints with Jack glass. And some folks are saying, Matt, that your volume may need to go up a little bit. And Mary Margaret's making googly eyes at you, but there's no accounting for taste. We're kidding, Mary Margaret. So good, William. Well, it's a joy
I have her
to have
googly
you on.
eyes looking back at me throughout the entire show.
That's great. Good.
Well, let's introduce or have Glum Puddle, the mysterious name Glum Puddle on here that some people might be like, what is this mean? Introduce yourself.
Well, someone like you that's not like a big Narnia fan might think that's mysterious, but I think most others know what that is.
I actually have no idea what this name is.
Well, have you guys have made it to Silverchair, haven't you?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was
Yeah,
last
don't remember
season.
this
Puddle
name.
Glum, Matt.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
But it's
Puddle Glum, I
reversed.
remember that name.
Puddle Glum, Puddle.
Glum Puddle,
I have dyslexia, clearly.
Best I could come up with. Just be original. Let's just take 2 parts of it and flip it. But
the name Puddle Glum comes from the Ohel.
Yeah. I'm Brian Carnell, also known as Glum Puddle, and NarniaWeb.com is a Narnia news site and online community that actually was founded 20 years ago this month. November 2003 is when the site launched. And our mission is basically to, number 1, provide the latest Narnia news, especially the upcoming movie adaptations, and carefully distinguish between fact and rumor. Number two, we want to connect people who love Narnia to a community where they can share their reactions and thoughts and gain new insight. And number three, we want to kind of turn that community into a megaphone to filmmakers to treat C.S. Lewis's beloved books with the respect they deserve. We want them to feel the weight of, wow, there's a lot of people that really care about these stories beyond just their entertainment value. So that's kind of the mission of Narnia Web. And the website and community are kind of the launch pad for Talking Beast, the Narnia podcast, which I'm the co-host of. And in each episode, we discuss or debate something about the books or the latest movie news. And most recently, we had some really interesting quotes from Netflix and director Greta Gerwig about the upcoming movie adaptations. And we were all breaking all that down and debating exactly what they meant. So there's lots of not heated exactly, but a passionate discussion about the Chronicles of Narnia and C.S. Lewis. And like I said, the community has been around for 20 years. We started off covering the movies from Walden Media, and we're still here today, anticipating more adaptations from Netflix. So it's a great community, and it's been really fun to be a part of. And frankly, it's a really important part of my life.
Well, and Brian,
And you
we're
just
grateful
released
to
a
have you in.
retrospective, didn't you?
Yes.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
Well, and
yes, and
you've already got some fans coming in on YouTube. The Commoner is here, and Andrew N are both cheering, and of course Brittany
Narnia
White has finally
Webbers.
joined. Yes,
That's impending doom.
okay, good.
Mhm.
And Brittany White has finally joined us, so great to hear from you, Brittany.
Hey,
William, I cut you off. I'm so
Brittany.
sorry.
Oh no, I was just going to note that I just listened today to the one they did on the latest news and such, and it was very good. I recommend it to others, and especially they were sharing the audio clip about what some comments. I don't know if we're going to get into it, but anyway, I would just say that I enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hi,
Grateful
Commoner
for the
on
work you
YouTube.
Mm-hmm. Matt Nash is noting that since it's Lewis's 125th birthday party, that makes him a hobbit today.
Ah.
Nice.
Well, and Matt, I'll argue with you. Twinings will do in a pinch, but Bewley's or Barry's Irish breakfast tea is certainly worth having. Brian, we're grateful, and I certainly personally am grateful for the faithfulness and the work that you've done for a couple of decades now, and love that you've blazed the trail, and love that you're joining us tonight. So, cheers to
Yeah,
you.
and I'm the one representing here, but there's Tyrion, aka David's the one that founded it, and Rachel, Fantasia Kitty, and Impending Doom, and Rose Tree Dryad, and Dot, and a whole bunch of others. But it's a whole community. It's been a whole team effort for 20 years. I wasn't even technically there 20 years ago. It took me a year and a half to arrive, but I happen to be the Narnie Weber sitting in this chair right now.
Good, good. Well, and Jake Dean has joined us from your folks as well, and so very grateful. It's a great community. Those who are drawn to Lewis, and we were thinking in the last podcast about how I wish I could just have you all over for dinner. It'd be great to be all
Or a pint.
Yes, absolutely. Great, Thornton.
Well,
Yeah, well, I wanted to say a thank you, David, for getting this all organized, as everyone else has said, and it's I feel very lucky and blessed to just be here with you all talking. I know I've heard many of y'all's voices for several hours as I'm walking the dog or driving to taking long car rides. I know nearly 20 years ago when the Narnia movies were coming out, I was scouring Narnia Web all the time for news and the chat board. So yeah, it's just really cool to I just bring some things full circle. And yeah, I just with the Mere C.S. Lewis podcast, it was I just had sort of had a second Lewis life. I in high school I had read his biggest hits, Mere Christianity, Screw Tape Letters, and then about 10, 15 years later, I was just having a real tough day at work, and all I wanted to do was just out of the blue, all I wanted to do was read The Horse and His Boy. And so just read that. It gave me sort of a second lease on life and just kind of snowballed into reading other things and then wanted to talk to or hear other people's thoughts on it. And I guess I blame the Apple's podcast algorithm being poor because when I was searching, I couldn't really find anything, and so I was like, well, let me make something. Later, on one of our most recent episodes, I kind of compared it to Lucy walking into the room and seeing an empty room with nothing but a wardrobe, and then she walks in and finds a whole new world. And I guess that's sort of how I have felt as I guess, gone down this path of podcasting and C.S. Lewis, and have found just a wonderful, large community. And so, yeah, we just our podcast with my two brothers who have joined me on it for different legs of the journey. We go through one book or one work at a time, one episode at a time, and it's been so with my own spiritual walk and just showing me how much I do not know and how much I have yet to learn.
Oh, that's great.
Mm. Well, beautiful. Well, thanks for those introductions, everybody. What I'd love to do with each of you guys is to kick it off with either answering what is your favorite Lewis quote and why you love it, or just tell us something about what C.S. Lewis means to you, if you don't have a quote. And let's start with William. You're up top.
I knew you were going to do it because I was like, oh, I meant to bring up my quotes I shared today because, well, it's one of those things like, asking which of the Narnia stories is your favorites. They're seven, so it's like, it's basically the one that you're reading most recently, and so
The horse.
I
By the way,
basically,
let me suggest a debate topic. Which is your favorite is great, but I would love, maybe at our next common room we can do this. Which Narnia would you get rid of? If you had to, or like
Oh.
David had the set of 4
We
that
should
he
send you.
posted. If you had to leave one behind, which of the 7 would? So maybe we'll argue about that some other time.
Okay.
Vision's nephew.
okay.
Yeah.
Well,
it's
yeah,
just 'cause
so
you haven't read it.
no.
Didn't finish it.
Probably
Oh.
true.
Mm. Well, on the quote front, one of the other things is on Facebook. I have, I don't know, I stopped counting them. Maybe I have 5 different groups. But so I was sharing some different quotes, and then I realized I only shared 2 of them on mine. But one of them was the one I did want to share, and that is something to be not necessarily offbeat here, as you'll see in a second, but something that's maybe not as commonly shared and whatnot. Because obviously Lewis has so many good ones here. But so one I picked is from a letter that's in volume 3, I think. Yes. How little people know who think that holiness is dull. When one meets the real thing, it is irresistible. Even if 10% of the world's population had it, would not the whole world be converted and happy before a year's end?
Oh my gosh.
That's so good.
I had a chance to meet Simon Barrington Ward, who was Bishop of Coventry, but he was chaplain at Magdalen, Cambridge when Lewis was there. They used to sit next to each other at dinner all the time. And I met him towards the end of his life. And it was one of those occurrences where when you meet a really holy person, he just changes the temperature of the room. And there was such a lightheartedness and a joy. And before we left, I asked him to bless me. And I meant to get a picture, but after the blessing, I just felt concussed at being in the presence of this really, really holy person. And when you read that quote, William, it just reminded me of some of those holy people that we meet from time to time. Yeah, no, it's great.
Let's go Glum Puddle.
My favorite quote definitely is Lewis said, "When I was 10, I read fairy tales in secret and would have been ashamed if I had been found doing so." Of course, Lewis podcasters, everybody starts nodding immediately. Now that I am 50, I read them openly. When I became a man, I put away childish things, including the fear of childishness and the desire to be very grown up. I found that quote it just really, really resonated with me the first time I heard it. And I've kind of carried that with me ever since, which is why I act such a fool in public, I guess. But yeah, that's really had a huge influence on me. And then, yes, exactly. I saw that.
Oh, okay.
You couldn't find a stock image that did it justice, so you went, you know what? You can step in.
He cut half of the wrong face off, of course.
I know. Well, the thing is, she was actually trying to get a selfie of us because we apparently didn't have many pictures of the two of us at this stage in our dating. And I was refusing to play along nicely.
That's great.
I am not lacking any couple photos with Mary Margaret.
Well, Andrew and I asked. Sorry, Glum Puddle. Go
It's
for it.
okay. Yeah, I encountered that quote, I think, in my teens, during that,
Mm.
which is that time of life where you're too old for fairy tales, as Lewis would say.
Mhm.
And I think that was really influential on me. The idea of being childish is not a negative thing, but actually kind of a positive thing.
Mhm.
And that's definitely had a huge impact on me. As far as what Lewis means to me, there's a definitely the family and personal connection where my grandfather taught a college course at the University of Florida on Lewis and Tolkien. He wrote his dissertation on the use C.S. Lewis and the word Zainzucht. So when he wrote to
Wait,
Lewis on several occasions, he got
was that
handwritten
Corbin
responses.
Scott Cornell?
That was Corbin Scott Cornell.
Yes.
That's my grandfather.
Oh, you didn't know
Hi.
that, Andrew.
Yeah, his book is very
May I
important.
introduce you to?
Yeah.
Bright shadow of reality.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, let's talk more about this afterwards. That's awesome. But yeah, I would go over to his house, and I would there'd be Lewis and Narnia books all around, and sometimes we'd have the BBC versions on, and that when I was very, very little. And then finally just kind of discovered the books for myself in my early teens. But so there's definitely that's definitely part of my interest, that family connection. But really, with my favorite book is Voyage of the Dawn Treader, and just it's really impacted just the way that book handles the way the unknown is simultaneously terrifying and amazing. We don't know what we're going to encounter, and every time I read the book, I get caught up in it. I get caught up in, even though I've read the book 100 times, I still kind of forget that and get caught up in what are they going to find, what's going to happen next.
Mhm.
And so I find that book just and I still all the time I'll look up in the sky, and it just amazes me that the universe is so much bigger than we can ever imagine. It's a little low res for me, Andrew. Can't quite. There's the
Oh,
letter.
okay.
Yep, there's the
Mhm.
letter.
In volume
Wow.
3.
Yep,
One of the
I
many.
actually I think that letter's at Wheaton College. I couldn't quite read what you had there, but I've actually held the physical letters on display at Wheaton College.
Fantastic.
But yeah. So I think the books also present a monarchy that's actually working the way it's supposed to. And there's a lot of completely valid reasons to be kind of skeptical of the monarchy, because absolute power corrupts absolutely, but there's something refreshing about seeing a version of it that's actually working the way it's supposed to, because it has this fantastical figure Aslan on top of it that actually makes it good. And in these dark, cynical times, I just find Narnia to be such a breath of fresh air. I desperately need every day. So that's kind of what comes to mind when you ask what does Lewis mean to me.
There's a Lewis connection to the monarchy. Ross Wilson, the sculptor in Belfast, who made the sculpture of Lewis the Seeker. I spent some time with him in Romania a couple of weeks ago, and he was actually asked by King Charles to do his portrait. And I
Wow.
included a little booklet that he had on the writings of Lewis, and Charles sent word to him that he was getting all of the Lewis that he didn't have, and he was going to reread it all. This was several years ago, and so,
Wow.
So one of us has gotten to the king, and it has a good effect.
Awesome.
Well, let's round it out with Thornton.
Yeah. So I won't say my favorite quote or passage because it's like 3 chapters in the Pilgrim's Redress, so I won't bore people with that. But something that I've read recently that I guess has been been bopping around in my brain. It's one of his poems. Well, I'll just read the last few lines, and it's the poem Worm. And it says, "How should man live save as glass, to let the white light without flame, the Father, unstained, or else opaque, molten to thy desire, infernal, starving in the strength of fire. Lord, open the weak eyes to this." And so I think in class fashion, he just in a few lines, just really humble a man and just show us how we stand in light of eternity and the Father. And so So that's one that's been recently speaking to me.
Mm. And of course, one that refers to Ungit. Everybody take a drink.
Infernal Venus, I knew it. Yeah, you've had a bunch of episodes in the run up to today. It's been really nice to be introduced to more of Lewis's poetry, because I hadn't touched any of it until literally last season when we had a poetry month, and then I sort of took it down in great gulps.
Mm.
And we're still trying to
It has been
convince
funny.
Matt that he needs to get. And we're still trying to convince Matt that he needs to do more poetry, particularly now he's got a
really
girlfriend.
does.
Don't
You know who's a
plant any
great
ideas in her
champion?
head. She's watching this.
Get him to write you a sonnet.
Yes, absolutely. Matt, I'll help you. I'll help you write the sonnet. A huge proponent and defender of Lewis's poetry and the quality thereof is Malcolm Guite. And so don't let anybody say that Lewis is not a great poet or a good poet in his hearing. And so maybe we'll get him on at some point. So yeah, thank you for mentioning the poetry. There's one. I want to pull it up really quick. One of the poems I think that speaks so eloquently to our current age is Readjustment, which is not one of his famous ones. I mean, you hear about the reason and imagination all the time. But he talks about being the last of one's species, and he says, now I see that all along I was assuming a posterity of gentle hearts, someone, however distant in the depths of time, who could pick up our signal, who could understand a story. There won't be. He says, between the new hominidae, which is like ape men, between the new hominidae and us who are already dying, there rises a barrier across which no voice can ever carry, for devils are unmaking language. And he says, I was, this idea that and it's a late and depressed poem where he talks about the failure of story, that people couldn't understand the importance of a burning Ilium or Arthur turning away on the barge. But I think that this reading day and that Lewis's ongoing legacy is a testament that we, through the depths of time that he couldn't have even imagined 60 years ago, we are picking up the story. And we are fighting hard against the devils who are seeking to unmake language and to make all truth fake news. So here's to those of us who are still trying anyway.
Well, I'm hoping to do these C.S. Lewis reading days for many years to come. So, I want to keep some of them in my back pocket. But this line here from Lewis is the last thing that he basically wrote before he died. Particularly since I've got married, it's had particular importance. When two people achieve lasting happiness, this is not solely because they are great lovers, but because they are also, and I must put it crudely, good people, controlled, loyal, fair-minded, mutually adaptable people. And back in an earlier season when I got Dr. Jason Lapayavi on the show and we spent a lot of time talking about love, he said that good lovers are virtuous people. And he said that might not sound sexy, but it's real. And in the end, real things are sexy things.
Mm-hmm.
Very good.
Great. My wife actually sent me this meme today. I had missed it, and she made sure that I saw it.
Well, before diving into more questions, I want to ask Brian, because of your involvement with this, what do we know about the upcoming Netflix adaptation of the Narnia Chronicles, and what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah. So don't actually know very much, but that doesn't mean there's not much to discuss and debate nevertheless. The two big things we know are Netflix and Greta Gerwig. Netflix has had the rights to all 7 books since 2018. And of course, I should say for anyone that doesn't know, prior to that, there was a Silverchair movie directed by Joe Johnston that was in development, but ultimately fell through. Then Netflix got the rights. Greta Gerwig will be writing and directing at least 2 Narnia movies. Netflix has not publicly announced which 2 at this point, and that mystery is the subject of a lot of discussion and theories on Narnia Web. Greta Gerwig, some stuff about Greta. Greta Gerwig most recently wrote and directed Barbie, which grossed over $1 billion this summer. And prior to that, she wrote and directed the 2019 adaptation of Little Women. And before that, she did a little movie called Lady Bird, which got several Oscar nominations. One of my favorite movies of the past decade, probably. Um, so Netflix and Gerwig, that's what we do know. That's about it. What we don't know is any kind of timetable. There's no release date. We have no idea when these are coming out. We also, like I said, don't know which stories they're going to start with. And it seems like Gerwig herself is still very early in the writing process. Recently, she was talking about Narnia and said that right now she feels like she is in the wood between the worlds, which caused many Narnia Webbers to say, well, she must be writing The Magician's Nephew. I'm sure that's what you thought, Matt, right? You immediately thought, oh my gosh.
That's literally what I thought, actually.
she must be writing The Magician's Nephew. That's what she's thinking about. The Wood Between the Worlds, one of the coolest ideas in all the 7 books. I personally did not take it that way. I think she was just making a playful metaphor about the fact that she's very early in the writing process and still trying to figure a lot of stuff out. In that same interview, Gerwig said that the Narnia books had meant a lot to her in her life, and she described C.S. Lewis as someone who had a lot of profound things to say. Another interesting quote recently came from Netflix film chief Scott Stuber, and he said that right now Gerwig is working to, quote, break the whole arc of the Narnia series. And again, many different Narnia Weber interpretations of what he meant by that. My reaction is how he was really just talking about the fact that there's not much of a narrative flow between the books, whether you read them in publication order, which is the right way, or chronological order. There's still not. It's not like one book leads into the next, like Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings, and just referring to trying to figure out what are we going to do as a movie, what are we going to do as a series. What's kind of our master plan. I think that's all he was trying to say. But that's all. That's where we are right now. Like I said, very few confirmed details, but lots to talk about and debate nonetheless. And with NarniaWeb.com and Talking Beasts, we want to create that megaphone for Netflix and the filmmakers. We don't necessarily want them reading all of our posts and saying, "Oh, they're saying they want this scene or this character or this line." That's not my desire. The idea is just to make them very clear that, wow, there's a lot of people that this is really, really important to. We should not treat this like paper plates. We should treat this like good china and give it the loving care and attention it deserves. So that's where we're at right now. We'll see what happens. I mean, whether the adaptations are good or bad, obviously I desperately want good Narnia adaptations and good movies. And if they're not good, I'd rather them not be made at all. But regardless, I'm looking forward to the experience of anticipating it with Narnia Webbers and getting into those discussions about, something that works great in a movie might not necessarily always work in a book, and vice versa, and figuring out how do you make sure that you've captured, even though you have to make some changes and lose characters, add characters, shorten this, lengthen this, all the usual things you got to do to make a book into a movie. How do you make sure the essence is still there and that it's still something that earns having Narnia, earns having C.S. Lewis's name in the credits? So I'm looking forward to going on that journey once again.
Brian, I'm glad that you brought up what you did. Yeah, go ahead, David. Yeah.
I was just going to say the main message I want to get to Netflix is that I am willing to shill for you if you buy me a ticket to New Zealand or send me to a premiere. I just want to say, I'm going to say it's great. Doesn't matter. Andrew, carry on.
Pluralize that pronoun, David. I did see a quote not long ago about actually Greta Gerwig grew up in Sacramento, which was where I grew up as well. Went to a Catholic high school and saw that quote about Barbie being a very old story about a woman who wakes up in innocence. And then so she has this kind of sense of a biblical narrative. And so I'm pretty hopeful about that. I also love, you see it in Genesis of a Medieval Book, you see it in Discarded Image, both early and late, and you see it in, I'm sorry to say it, in the postscript to Till We Have Faces, where Lewis talks about the medieval method of authorship, and that an author is not trying to be original. They're trying to take a story that everybody knows and lop off the bits they don't like and add on the bits that they do like and pass it along. And so Sir Thomas Malory, in kind of gathering from Berulle and Chrétien de Troyes and the Celtic legends and Monmouth, and gathering all the Arthurs and kind of making a cohesive whole. I think it's the right of a director to go ahead and not slavishly tell the story, but to retell the story to some degree, in a way that seems to them true. And I think that Peter Jackson went pretty far down that road, and did an okay job of it. Andrew Adamson, of course, saying, by saying that he didn't reread Narnia, he wanted to film his 10-year-old memory, his memory of him as a 10-year-old, reading the books for the first time, and so I respect her right as a director to make a new thing out of that story, but I do hope
Mhm.
that she understands it. I hope that she gets it. I don't think that
Mhm.
Michael Apted really got the Voyage of the Dawn Treader whatsoever, and that was
Well, I
very
would say I wouldn't
disappointing.
want to throw Michael Apted under the bus too much. I think he was caught in a very difficult situation of a lot of cooks in the kitchen,
Okay,
and
good.
it's so I sounds like we had pretty much the same reaction to the movie, but I wouldn't want to put too
So I'll
much of it on
condemn.
Michael
I'll
Apted's
condemn
shoulders
all
in
of the. I'll,
particular.
I'll
All
condemn
the
all of the
cooks and
cooks.
Mhm.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
went to the
Hmm.
midnight showing of Voyage of the Dawn Treader, and I probably like that movie the most because I love that book the best, and I had no idea what was coming next.
Hmm.
Mm.
I turned to my friend at the midnight showing and said, "Well, I'll never have to go to one of these movies ever again."
Mm. Yeah, and I
But I
like what
think
you
that,
were.
yeah,
Yeah. Oh, I would say the point you're making about adaptation. I had the opportunity when I was at the Wade Center last month. Andrew knows these people, and some of the other here may as well. But Crystal Downing, one of the co-directors, and Star, and Terry
yeah.
Glaspie.
Well,
I had them all
Northwind
three in a
Seminary.
room.
It's a shout
Yes,
out to
yes, yes.
Northwind
Yes.
Seminary
Shout
who
out
was
to
there.
them.
So
Definitely.
cheers to them.
But yeah, so I had I recorded an hour, and we just had an hour. We probably could have gone on for like 3 hours, but each of them have a great perspective, understanding of the arts. Crystal has done some great work in terms of she of film. Obviously, I'm going to forget the right words here, but she knows how to critique film, and she's written books about it and various articles in terms of her specialty.
Yeah.
And then Charlie had done some things on a smaller scale in terms of actually doing some film things in some different work that he's done at some universities. But anyway, the three of them combined, it was a great back and forth. They didn't always agree on exactly everything, but they were able to tactfully, challenge and whatnot. Great,
Thought this
especially people who were, I want to say, overly concerned with Greta being the director, because I think Barbie is a film that it wasn't geared for children. And just briefly here, a wrap up here, and that it was satire and understanding that. So I think they made some good points about that. And I don't know if I caught all of the shows from Narnia Web. I know they did some good coverage when it came out, and touched on some of the things that I caught my guest did. So there's some great things if people are wondering to catch on either of the shows.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
particularly
Yeah.
recommend Glum Puddle's review of the other things that she's done and the reactions
Mm.
to it, because I think that's really the best way of having some idea of what she's going to do, just seeing what she's done, particularly with previous adaptations like the Little Women one.
And it's tough because again, she hasn't done anything like Narnia before, which I find really exciting that she's doing something. That's why we've gotten several quotes from her for saying that she's terrified and literally having recurring nightmares about this movie, 'cause she's
Mm.
obviously really,
Mm.
really intimidated by it, and she should
Good.
be.
Good.
Exactly. If she'd have felt herself sufficient, it would have been a proof she was not. Yeah, to me, like Greta Gerwig is a very weird choice to direct Narnia. And again, like I absolutely loved Lady Bird, so she's made a movie that I dearly, really, really love. But I never would have predicted her as a choice to direct Narnia. It is a weird choice, and I find myself kind of liking that it's a weird choice, kind of liking that she's never
Hmm.
done anything like this before, and
Yeah.
kind of liking that she's an auteur who has a voice, and kind of liking that she's gonna make this her own. I mean, I do think if you go into this with um if your main attraction to an Narnia movie is, well, I love the books, not I read the book, and now I want to see the movie, which
Mm.
is, I just want to see it come to life, which is a completely
A
valid,
slideshow of it.
yeah, that's a completely valid thing to want. There's nothing wrong with that, and I want that too to a degree. But I would predict you're probably not going to be happy if what you're mainly wanting is, well, I love the books. I want to see actors bring them to life. I want to hear music and sound effects and just see the book come to life. I do think I think she will make it her own, and I think I'm in equal measure excited and terrified
Yeah.
by that. At the moment, I'm more just excited because I like that we're getting a filmmaker that has a real distinctive voice, a real storyteller, and is not just a hired gun. So could go either way, but I find myself mainly being happy that we've got a real artist, a real storyteller, a real auteur. But we'll see what happens. It's like if you feel a bit like a protective parent sometimes with this stuff.
Yeah. Thornton, I'd love to hear your opinion on some of this, but I do want to shout out JP83, who just jumped in from Melbourne, Australia. So I think that's the farthest afield that we've had so far. So
That's
here's
incredible.
to you, JP. You probably shouldn't be drinking scotch at 10 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, Thornton, where do you come in all of this?
I think a lot of things have been said already. The two things of Greta Gerwig I've seen was Frances Ha and Little Women, and I liked both of those.
I
And
like
I
Francis
think
Ha.
like yeah, and I think like you were saying, Glenn Puddle, that with Patient of Little Women, she told the story, but she like took all the scenes and rearranged them and told them in a new, fresh way. So what I would am expecting that she's going to tell the Narnia story, but starting out in if she does Lion Witch in the Wardrobe and then going into a wardrobe, we might start in the middle of Narnia, and then we might then go back to England, and then we might go different bouncing around, and so I think she'll tell based off my view of watching Little Women, which I absolutely adored, and I made me excited to read the book. So based off that, get the essence of Narnia. I just think, like you said, she's an artist, tell it in her own way, which I think will be unique, but then also make people interested in like more Narnia or trying to tell it in a new way. So I think it might for some people who just want to see a slideshow, like you say, just kind of see everything word for word, just with.
It's a great way to put it.
Which is fine. I think there's nothing at all with wanting that.
Well, watch the cartoon if you want.
I think for that you have the BBC version and the Walden Media version, and so now I think we'll have this opportunity to have a real fresh breath to it, and with a strong potential to make people really excited. Aren't already excited about it.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing that I'm definitely excited about. Regardless, is obviously Greta Gerwig was already a well-established filmmaker before Barbie. Her both Lady Bird and Little Women were nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars, but Barbie's made her much more mainstream. And whatever she does next, apparently Narnia, is gonna start a cultural conversation. People are going to be paying attention to it, and the kinds of people that otherwise would not have given Narnia a second thought. I mean, like the film festival crowd and real cinephiles are going to be watching it and taking it seriously as a work of art. That doesn't automatically make it a good movie or a good adaptation. But regardless, I am excited about that people are going to be paying a lot of attention to Narnia as a result of this.
Brian, that's a great point. And far past C.S. Lewis Reading Day, maybe we can call together some of the tribes and think what we should do as people who are active commenting, at least on the Lewis world, what we need to do to prepare, because that cultural conversation is coming. And of course, it's a great chance to shed light and to bear witness to truth and goodness and beauty and the origins of it. And so we should actively, after Reading Day, we should stay in touch and develop this community and see what we can do. Another thing I think about is that the idea of writing a fairy tale or writing a narrative in their age, when Lewis and Tolkien were doing it in the early 50s, narrative was completely passe, and they did not care about story. Modernist British lit did not care about story, which is why you got Gregor Samsa waking up as a cockroach or whatever. And to write a story, and it's Tolkien's comment to, I think, Walter Hooper. Jack, he had to have a story. And that story, made out of all of the languages and the geographies and maps that Tolkien had lying around, that story was written to keep Jack quiet. And there aren't enough of the sort of books that we like to read. And they write these really powerful narratives. I hope that, mostly my hope is that Greta Gerwig or anybody really gets it and then understands the power of story, which is a carrier of the gospel. I think part of why we are creative in terms of fiction and fairy tale is because we're in the image of God and because that carries so much life. And so I hope that she understands the radical act of writing narrative, and that she does a similar thing, that she composes a message that is equal to our time. And I don't know. I have some fears and hopes as well.
Well, I've actually got a follow-up question on this subject of adaptation. Which Inklings related property, so pretty broad, would you like to see adapted next? So any of the books by Tolkien, Lewis, Charles Williams, Owen Barfield, or G.K.
The
Chesterton, Dorothy
Icelandic
Sayers.
Dictionary.
I'll start on this one because
Thornton.
I've been thinking about this a little bit. Since your David, I think it was Catherine Ware from the Wade Center about her work with Dorothy
Yeah.
Sayers, and she's Inkling adjacent, so I'll bring her in. After that
She
conversation,
counts.
I got the man born to be king.
Oh yeah.
Reading through some of the plays, just like Lewis, because from the Lewis read her plays as sort of like an Advent devotional, so I was going to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Says I've been reading
No,
through
that
them a
was
little
a-
bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, do I enter?
No, that was me and
Oh, sorry.
and Crystal Downing. So
Yes,
Yeah.
So when y'all reading through it, yes, I've been like the chosen for the 1950s of sorts, and I really language and how she structured things, and so I would really love to see like I did radio play or radio drama of these plays. I listened to a Scrooge podcast radio play with Ben Barnes and John Rhys Davis. So, and that's really been like this for the Christmas season. Would be new thing to do.
I'm having a hard time with the question. Just like
I'm sorry, David. Yeah.
No, David did. Okay.
He actually had pinned me down to get an interview done, and so I was very proud of that. But there it is. Yeah.
I'm having a difficult time with the question about what you'd want to see adapted, because I keep thinking of something. Oh, I'd love to see that. Oh, but how would that work as a movie? Like my first reaction was Till We Have Faces, but I just have a hard time picturing that as a movie. I think because I think Lewis did such a good job of taking advantage of the medium he was in. And I definitely don't feel like the Space Trilogy would. I just think it'd be really disappointing.
That would do a nice radio drama, the space.
It might. Yeah.
The Ransom trilogy. Yeah.
That
Focus on the family. Need to get on that.
As a standalone. Yeah.
Well, I did talk to Paul McCusker about that years ago, and the funding was not really there in terms of trying to, I was trying to say, well, do the first one. It's a shorter book, smaller budget, but I'm sure with all the other things that they were doing, but yeah.
I think that Hideous Strength, which is what I go back to as a standalone most often, might be able to hold up. I wonder, especially given the really interesting things that Andy Serkis has done, I wonder if Screw Tape could be a movie.
Right, yeah. I see in the chat someone suggested that.
Particularly after seeing Nefarious, if you get the right kind of demonic type of individual, that could be fantastic.
The Screw Tape video blog. The Screw Tape Zoom conversations.
So here's my recommendation. I want to see a Severe Mercy.
Ooh,
yes.
This is Inklings adjacent, but you could do such great
adjacent.
things. But it's got letters from Lewis. Lewis could be a character in this.
without any question.
David, we
No,
met the
that's a-
person that
that's a-
owned the rights to it, but nothing ever happened.
Or
to
at
it.
least they were trying to. I'm not sure if they had the rights already, but they were certainly looking to maneuver to turn that into a movie.
Yeah.
Mm.
Of course, something that is going to be a movie, Christmas in Some Cities, is the Anthony Hopkins as Freud's last session,
Yeah.
and the first of the year for everyone else.
Yeah.
I'm curious
Well,
about that.
And as we're talking about things like that are happening, of course, you've all noticed Jonathan Rumi and Liam Neeson doing Advent devotionals on Halloween.
That's pretty. It's interesting.
And let's raise a glass to Joss Ackland, who played Lewis in Shadowlands, and also I think he narrated Mere Christianity, right? Or was it Screwtape?
It was Screwtape Letters.
Screwtape
Yes,
Letters, he
Screw-
definitely, yeah.
So a
So
blessed
good.
memory to Joss.
To Joss. Great man.
Yes.
An idea that
Well, I actually had another question.
oh, sorry, David.
Yeah.
No, go for it.
No.
Go for it.
Yeah, I'll be quick. We were talking about the misquotable Lewis and a shadow Lewis or an anti Lewis out there. Quotes. It would be funny if there would be like a one act play between like the real
Anti-Lewis.
going at with their
You probably wouldn't even need the real Lewis. There's enough material, isn't there?
Oh.
William?
yeah.
Well,
just,
yeah,
take
well,
stuff
yeah,
from-
and I was just thinking, Andrew, you
great
would like to
idea,
have
William.
fun. You could be the anti-Lewis. I
The real Lewis, and then we could.
don't know.
Well,
I think we
you
should
know,
make this happen.
Yes.
I would
Yeah.
do that, but I don't.
Uh-oh.
Oh, David's listening. We
I
can't have
think
ideas
less
like
of-
this.
I don't. I think less of myself. I have too much humility, which is not thinking of myself less of myself, but thinking of myself
Oh.
less. So, yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
No,
the next question I wanted to ask, the Tolkien Society, they have themes on their
What to do
David
with
freeze or
Did
did
he
I
freeze
freeze?
Yeah.
Did we
no,
lose David?
He froze.
Now we lost-
David, you froze. They have themes.
Okay.
is
Oh,
where
you're
you
back.
stopped.
I'm back. I'll try that again. So my question was, Tolkien Society set a theme on the Tolkien Reading Day each year. Should C.S. Lewis Reading Day do the same thing? And if you think we should, do you have any suggestions for themes for next year?
What are some of the themes that they did for Tolkien?
No, now you're asking me. Fortunately,
No,
Oh,
I
so
don't have
I
it.
guess so. I'm just looking for.
No, it's okay.
I mean,
It's
Why
okay.
is Lewis such a better writer than Tolkien? No.
I'm just
No,
looking
no.
for examples to kind of see what you're getting at by theme.
Sure.
There
So
you go.
love and friendship, hope and courage. So they've kept it fairly squarely in virtue territory.
Okay.
I'd suggest that for the next time we do it, let's just widen the tribe, right? There's some important folks that we don't have. Like the comments are saying, hey, bring Max McLean on, which is not an impossible get.
That'd be
Oh,
great.
wow, yeah, that'd be
I
great.
think if we firmly establish, and I don't know about y'all, but I've just been so thrilled to see my social media blow up all day with the hashtag. I don't know if we've turned it into a trending topic yet, but it was just a joy to see it. But at the beginning of the day on Insta, there were fewer than 100 posts on C.S. Lewis Reading Day. So I think that, let's consolidate and let's dig in, and then I think sky's the limit. But that's just me after a scotch and a half. So
hmm
I may be just being a respectable.
Spectacle.
I think Andrew, as I just pointed through, maybe widening it, but I guess to do your question justice, David, I would think maybe we could do one of his like 3 broad themes of like apologetics or imagination or scholarship, something like that. At some point, I think like you with the Tolkien, we could do it within sort of a virtue angle as well, or yeah, just maybe focus on a specific work or something. But yeah, I guess those are just some thoughts that came to me as I've thought about it.
hmm Well, I know, like
Shout out
this
to
year,
Justin, by the way.
Yeah, this year the theme sort of was, our focus was sharing a favorite quote, apart from our podcast live and stuff. So, but before I was aware of that, I was jotting down some different notes to where, like, if we were getting people to like uh, respond or share something like, why have you found Lewis worth reading? What impact or insight has been the result of reading him? And then what
Yeah.
a person is currently reading or plan to start reading, or maybe from this, something they hadn't heard about and that they want to read.
When I was a high school teacher, we did a little campaign and it turned into something. And it was hashtag, why Houston Christian, which is the high school I taught at. So why C.S. Lewis, and then just, have people and make that a trending thing, have them hashtag that. Why C.S. Lewis? And you could probably get to, to Jonathan Rumi or Liam Neeson or others of that level, and they would, yeah. So maybe a question.
I do have a very
Mm,
particular
mhm.
set of skills.
You do have a very particular set of skills when it comes to getting everybody in the Lewis world.
Yes, David Bates will find you, and he will
Yeah.
get you on the live stream.
My favorite still to this day is Sister Miriam James. How you pulled that one off. He
Yeah.
emailed and emailed and emailed, and then finally takes like a 2-minute clip and clips it and sends it to her of me nerding out over one of my favorite books that she wrote. And finally, I want to say begrudgingly agreed to come on after David pestered multiple times.
Yeah.
The funny thing is that wasn't even my end game. I had her cell number. I was ready to use it.
Oh.
Yeah. The ace in
So,
the ace in the sleeve. Yeah.
Yep. Carlotta and Mary Margaret agree with David. Jake says yes to themes. Matt has an interesting
different.
suggestion that got some traction. Maybe picking different periods of his life.
Mm, I just saw that.
So,
Mm.
Yeah,
let's
young
do
Lewis,
there's something so important about the teens. And then I see that that my friend Justin Wiggins has jumped on. So nice to see him
Yes,
on the
hello,
feed as well.
Justin.
Oh, yes.
So,
yeah. Hey, Justin.
Yeah.
I haven't
saw
seen
him in
Justin since
Oxford.
Montreat in the beginning with Phil and Daniel. Remember we sat
Oh.
on the porch
Mm.
Yeah.
with Douglas Gresham.
Yeah.
And everybody.
So
And
some kind
everybody.
of framing device, David, I think is a fine idea.
That would be interesting. Yeah, that was really helpful. Thank you. Because needless to say, I've already got some documents up, and I'm planning next year.
Guys, he's got show notes written for season 9 already. We're on 7 right now.
I thought you were going to say 19, but
Well, William, we wanted to ask you a specific question because you've going back to the beginning with your podcast and all the content that you put around with that. Is there any like lesser known thing of Lewis that you found really interesting throughout your time doing this?
Sure, yeah. Well, I mean, there's a variety of things that you can pick from, even by avoiding the ones that are more well known per se. One that is an essay that, if people know any essays, I do want to briefly encourage for those who maybe haven't gone into them, and that is, of course, the Weight of Glory. But one from that collection that is not as well known is On Forgiveness. I had a chance to chat with the lesser known Lewis podcast. And so it was interesting because my background is in counseling, which we hadn't talked about and such. That's what my training is in. It was interesting in terms of reading Lewis and then doing training as a Christian, but yet also working in a mainstream setting and then seeing forgiveness being talked about more favorably or a need for it. Anyway, all that to say, it was ironic on a personal level that about 6 weeks after a recording with him on that, there's a situation to where someone, not purposefully, but they really hurt my feelings very, very bad. And it was like I was having the hardest time to forgiving them. Okay, besides my just training and understanding in terms of from a Christian perspective and in counseling, some great training from that. And so I found Lewis's essay on forgiveness is what it's simply called. And there's a companion piece per se that's in Mere Christianity on the topic of forgiveness. But then couple brief other essays to encourage people to look at if they haven't looked at any of them. The Inner Ring has really been something that that stood out when I first read it, as well as the Meditation in a Tool Shed.
Yeah.
Great
Absolutely.
suggestions.
By the way, on forgiveness, the forgiveness chapter follows Christian marriage, and it's right before pride. And
That's
charity,
very
Precisely.
otherwise known as unget, follows that.
Well, let's finish with one final question. I'd love to hear each of your guys. It's for us specifically on Pints with Jack, but I assume Lewis would state that he appreciates this as well. We love Lewis because he brings us closer to Christ. So I'd just love to hear how Lewis has impacted your own spiritual journey. If there's like a singular thing that really drew you closer to Christ by engaging with Lewis or brought you closer in a relationship with God. Let's start with, I guess we just had William talking a bit. So let's start with Thornton.
Yeah. As I've or Lewis the last 3 years, he has felt like a mirror, sort of reflecting the light, and so which has just made me hungry to, um, I guess, seek after the light that he's reflecting more. I have found myself, reading the Bible more as I'm trying to just one maybe understand some of the things he's saying a little bit better, but also just trying to capture or chase after that light he's reflecting. Um, he's I think a lot of his essays and some of his works like Mere Christianity, I kind of view as like pastoral theology, sort of like on the ground ways to the Lord. So we've done a lot of essays recently on prayer, and so those have really challenged me to be serious about my prayer life and maybe try because I'm also evangelical background, so trying to do some more formalized prayer, and whether it's praying the Psalms or um, doing what Lewis says calls festooning the prayers, where you take something from Scripture and then you sort of ad lib on top of it, and I think just sort of doing more spiritual practice and thinking a little bit more deeply about faith and just diving deeper into the word has been the way that he's helped me become more like Christ and to be more familiar with my relationship with him.
That's fantastic.
As an Episcopapticostitarian, Thornton,
Yeah.
I came from no tradition and then came from a very extemporaneous tradition. The daily office, the set prayers, and I'll throw up a link. There's a great little prayer book called Hour by Hour, which is really super short prayers, but it's morning prayer, noonday prayer, afternoon prayer, evening prayer, Compline. Super short, takes 5 minutes to pray it, but it has been my spiritual director recommended it to me, and it's a great way to kind of get into the more liturgical or formal or pre-written prayers in a way that I think is pretty safe and availing. That's one of the things that I love for my evangelical tradition is I get to avail myself of any tradition out there and use it to draw me closer. And so, yeah, and I think that Lewis is a great light for that. So I just threw that in our chat right there.
Oh, awesome! Thank you. Yeah, I'm checking that right now.
It's super thin, and yeah, it's pretty easy to use. What about
Brian,
you,
how about
Brian?
yourself?
Yeah, I think about the best way to approach this question. I really, for me, it comes back to kind of what I think Voyage of the Dawn Treader is about. In that Reepicheep's the excitement of there being something else beyond the world, and not just the excitement at that idea that maybe what we can see and touch, maybe there's something more. It's not just the excitement about it; it's the kind of the need for it, the need for there's got to be something else, and that has really got me. To me, that's kind of the central idea behind Narnia in a way, and that Lewis came back to in his other writings again, the idea of longing, the idea of Sehnsucht, and the sense that um, knowing intuitively that there's something wrong with the world right now.
Yeah.
When we turn on the news and we see things going so wrong, and intuitively, and Lewis believed, that we know we have the sense there's something wrong because, like he said, what was he said something like a man knows what a crooked line looks like because he's seen a straight line. He says something like that.
Yeah.
Um, and I think when I just kind of talked about before with in Narnia, we have a monarchy, we have humans ruling the world, and what they say goes. They're kings and queens, but you have this fantasy figure Aslan over it that makes it good, and how it's so refreshing for me to see that and to wanting that to be true. Um, and so on a spiritual level, for me, what Narnia has done, it's really made me, I think, during dark times in my life, whether it's something with me personally or something I'm seeing in the world, it's given me this kind of context to put those dark times in with, hey, maybe this isn't the way it's supposed to be. And maybe there's something else, just even the idea that maybe there is something more than what we can see and touch is something that's been, that's been a really important idea for me. Yeah, and I think that's probably for me to sum it all up. Why have I spent so much of my time on the Narnia in particular? I think that's what I would say.
That was beautiful. Thank you for that. How about yourself, William?
Yeah, for me, I mean, there's a lot of different things I could talk about, but I guess the best way to summarize it is as follows, and that is Lewis early on, as for me, it was actually my late teens as a senior in high school when I first read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and then onto Screw Tape. And then I did mean to plug earlier when you're talking about lesser known, but this is a nice collection from the early 80s. And this is my original one, to where Lewis has been, was from that point on, essentially a mentor to me. And like that book there with the different readings, all nonfiction. I definitely do enjoy the nonfiction. I mean the fiction, but I was more of a nonfiction person, and so Lewis was able to touch on a variety of things and then help in kind of spiritual guidance. And then after still reading him through the years, but it was around 20 years ago when I was big life transition, a lot of things happening, kind of chaotic. And so I found, though I didn't, lose my faith or do any crazy stuff, but that he helped reground me in certain aspects of growing, and then going back to some of the things I had read earlier.
For me, would be to summarize it as like a mentor or
a
a friend that you
that
friend, but because of his writings,
you can just
You see breezy and spotty for anybody else?
Yeah. The last bit was.
Yeah.
Oh, did I not come through, or?
Oh, you're back. Yes, your audio is back.
Oh, okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
It
Yeah.
was just the very
Yeah.
last bit when you were talking about friends and.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I was just circling back around to where definitely he's been like a mentor, but someone that not person ever met, but then there's so much of things that he wrote about that you can just learn so much from him, and so he's been definitely a mentor to me.
I love that. David, anything else here as we wrap this up?
I'd say let's wrap this up. I have much more to say about Lois, but I always do.
I did
Yep,
want to
we
say,
all do, yes.
I gave a different answer last time, but I did want to say that, and all joking aside, my work on Till We Have Faces has helped me to understand how important the love of God is in all of Lewis's work, and I think it's central. I think that's his main aim. But that's helped me really try to grapple with the love of God. And I spent the last 18 or so years working on Till We Have Faces, mostly because I want to see that the God's, I want to get a clearer vision of God's love for me. And that's part of why I chose this vocation, is because Lewis's charity and clarity, his desire to make things clear, and mostly his desire to make clear the love of God, has been a guiding light to my own personal theology. Um, yeah, exactly. Why should your heart not dance? Um, but I think that as a priest and as somebody who spent the last 3 years adjacent to Washington D.C., and as somebody who's in relationship, I think that the theme that Lewis sounds most and that we most need is
What is it? What do we most need?
What we need, Andrew? What do we
Cliffhanger.
need?
We need it. You cut out right as you said what we most needed.
Yeah,
I
what
think
do we need?
what we most need is a sense of God's unrelenting tenderness towards us.
Oh,
I think
amen.
that would change our politics. I think that would change our devotional
Worthy
life.
answer.
I think that would solve Israel and Hamas and Russia and Ukraine if everybody understood God's love for us, which is, I think, Lewis's main theme. And that's completely changed the course of my own life. And that's part of why I pursued ordination, is because I want to be paid to do for a living what I want to do anyway. What Lewis taught me how to do was to see clearly and then communicate and live into the love of God in Christ for us. And that's the most important thing. It's even greater than the two great commandments. Loving him and loving neighbor is our response, but his love for us is our constant theme. And that's, I think, what Lewis offers me anyway. And that's the guiding light that gets me out of bed every morning without any question.
Well, on that note, which
Excellent.
is the perfect way to end. Thank you for that, Andrew. We just want to say thank you for everyone that is watching this live,
Yes.
for everyone that's going to be watching this post live. I'm imagining there's a better word for that, but I want to thank all of our just continuous listeners, all the people in the Lewis community, and just today here, and obviously thank Lewis and for the gift that he has been in all of our lives, and thank William, thank Brian, thank Thornton for joining us here today, and then most importantly, thank David for
Yes.
all of the work that he did in making this
To
happen.
David, to David
We have our
Bates, the
first
founder
inaugural
of
C.S.
our
Lewis
feast.
Day.
Yes.
Yes. Well,
To
and Matt, I
Jack.
got bad news for you.
Yeah.
Mary Margaret says, "Wow, now I can't wait to read Till We Have Faces."
I was like, come on, Andrew. And the worst part, David, I don't know if I should tell her this, but didn't you read Marie chapters of Till We Have Faces out loud while you guys were dating?
Yeah, we read it alongside the podcast as we were reading through. We did it together. Not rushing ahead, nearly killed her.
You're welcome. All right, friends. To Jack.
Yes.
Further up and further in, everyone.
Further up and
Further
further
up
in.
and further in. Cheers.
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 Ding.
Mary Margaret just texted me, well.